This is the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, and today we are cracking open all the real feels and talking about the dark secret that's haunting retail and e-commerce business owners.
Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast on SelenaKnight.com. Stay ahead of the competition by opening your doors to business experts so you can learn, grow, and be inspired. Passionate about bringing business strategies to independent retailers, please welcome your host, Selena Knight.
Well, hello there, and welcome to today's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. I'm your host, Selena Knight, the retail strategist, and today I want to talk about something that quite often does not get talked about in business. As business owners, we face so many hurdles on a day-to-day basis. Like seriously, in one day, sometimes I wonder just how many fires I have to look at putting out. And I've got a great team, so I know that I'm really lucky to have those people to call upon. And if you're lucky to have a sounding board in your business, well, maybe you're doing okay. But what if you don't? Now, I don't know if this has happened to you, and it's probably a lot more likely to be happening if you're just starting out with your retail or e-commerce business. But I found it really, really difficult for my friends and my family to take my job seriously. If I was ever working from home, they thought I was just sitting about watching TV. And if I was at the shop working, they thought it was loads and loads of fun. And my girlfriends, they used to think that my job as a retail business owner comprised of hours spent swanning around, entertaining endless visitors, and giving myself access to a mother load of stuff at cost price. And I don't know if you've ever suffered this embarrassment, but for years, my dad at the Christmas dinner table, because it's pretty much the only time we ever see each other, I'm pretty sure that he thought I was just playing shop and it was some quaint folly, and he insisted on asking me every single year at the Christmas dinner table, so are you still doing that shop thing? Like, honestly, it was demoralizing and humiliating, and it really made me resent this thought that running your own business is super simple. So my girlfriends thought that I was running a business just to get cheap access to stock. My dad thought I was just playing shop, and my poor husband, well, I have to admit, eventually he kind of got sick of hearing me complaining about customers who wanted refunds, or something that a kid had destroyed in the store, or a customer that was just a complete pain in the butt, or how demoralizing it was when everyone disappeared the moment it started to rain. Now, you may have heard me talk about this on the podcast before. Our store was on a street, like on a strip mall, and not in a big shopping centre. So to come to the store, you had to get out of your car and walk, along the pavement to get to the store. And that meant, if it was raining, that you were probably going to get wet. We weren't in a big shopping mall. And of course, we sold baby stuff, and nobody wants to get their newborn baby out of the car in the pouring rain, run across the road and into a shop. So I used to have this horrible pit in my stomach feeling, and Ed actually said to me that he used to get this as well. If it had been raining for days on end, I would just wake up so disheartened because I knew that the number of people in the store was going to be so low. Now, that was actually the catalyst for me finding different streams of income into my retail store, but that is a story for another episode. So all of these things were going on, and I was not feeling very happy about myself, about what was happening to my self-esteem as a business owner. But then I found an ally in the most unlikely place. Believe it or not, it turned up as my competition. Yep, oh my word, if you haven't heard this story, the gorgeous Elizabeth, who works with me now as our creative director, was actually, once upon a time, my competition. We opened our stores within 2 weeks of each other. We actually sold our businesses within a couple of weeks of each other. And for years, we were the only 2 stores in the whole of Australia who sold what we sold. And then one day, I had no choice but to call her because my supplier had sent some stock to her that was supposed to come to me. So long story short, I had to call up my competition and ask her to give me some stock. But here's the thing. Once we got on the phone, we actually discovered that we had so much in common, and we started talking, and it was like the biggest weight had been lifted off my shoulders to be able to talk to someone about our similar experiences, to know somebody else understood exactly the stuff I was going through, and to openly discuss like heartfelt good stuff, bad stuff, the soul destroying stuff, to be able to actually talk to somebody about what was working and what wasn't, to be able to share ideas, to get someone to bounce these things off with, to be free with our information, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the thing was, when we were having these discussions, we knew that it was perfectly safe. It sounds so wrong on paper, doesn't it? Here we are, the competition against each other, but instead of actually fighting against each other, we became allies, and we ended up doing so many things for our industry, including setting up the first not-for-profit advocacy group. Honestly, it was the best feeling in the world. And you know what? It was as awesome for my business as it was for me, for my soul, for my energy, for my self-worth. My business thrived on that collaboration and even on load sharing. Yep, we actually helped each other with tasks as well. And as you can tell, all these years later, over a decade later, we are still friends and still working together. So you're probably wondering, why am I sharing this? Well, at the time of recording this podcast, I've just come back from an Instagram masterclass at the legendary Facebook headquarters here in Sydney. Now, it was pretty fantastic seeing a bit of a peek behind the curtain of a business that is literally at billion-dollar status and that is known by pretty much any tech-savvy person in the world. Now, sure, the Facebook people were very hospitable. They treated us to breakfast, and the kombucha and the snacks were flowing freely throughout the class. And I did take some time to do a little bit of research. And whilst there were quite a few people there from bigger chain stores, there were quite a few people who were independent retail and e-commerce store owners, just like you. And they were there to learn something new and to help grow their business. So I got to talking to a few of these ladies, and yes, there were probably around 60 or so people in the room. 55 of them are women and around about 5 men. So I was talking to these ladies, and somewhere along the conversation, the topic came around to sitting behind a computer screen all day. Now remember, these were people with physical stores and people who had e-commerce stores. So what they were talking about was, quite often as a business owner, there are so many things you have to be keeping your finger on the pulse of. But then the conversation started to turn a little bit, and phrases such as, sometimes I just wish I had someone to talk to that isn't a customer or a staff member. And sometimes I just wish that somebody else was there to pick up the slack, to carry this mental load, started popping up. Now, even people who have a physical store, well, they're often surrounded by people all day. But here's the thing. They can actually still feel very lonely. You know what I'm talking about, right? That deep pit of professional and, let's be honest, often personal loneliness that seems to be this, I'm going to call it a unique side effect of being an independent retail or e-commerce business owner. And for me, the symptoms looked something like this. Not having anyone to talk about finances, apart from my bookkeeper, who at the time I was only seeing every 3 to 6 months. Not having anyone to talk to about what to do when business was slow. And not having someone who really understood how freaking exciting it can be when you master a Facebook ad, or you run a successful promotion, or someone comes in and drops $2,000 on one order, or you hit your monthly target, someone who's genuinely, ecstatically pleased for you. So going back to a little bit of my impromptu business research, I asked what people did when they needed some advice or they wanted to share something fantastic. And overwhelmingly, the answer was they took to social media. They jumped into Facebook groups to talk about or to ask questions. Now, that's great when the good stuff is happening. But if you're resorting to speaking to strangers in a Facebook group who know nothing about you or anything about your business in this desperate need to feel some kind of connection, that is not a great place to be in your business. And that in itself can create a kind of domino effect. If you're having a rough time, popping a post into a Facebook group and inviting 25 people to jump into your virtual pity party is only going to drop you down even further. And then even worse, if no one comments or you get some tough love comments, it's likely to spark more negativity inside of you. So you see what I mean about social media just sending you into a spiral? And I'm sure the majority of people who are listening have experienced it at some point, right? I know I certainly have. And social media can be great. Let's not knock social media. We have a fantastic group where people are willing to jump in and help you solve your problems. What I'm talking about here is just relying on random strangers to give you that connection and to help lift you up in those times where business loneliness is just overwhelming. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes I just want some workmates, because whilst we all love our customers and even our team, and quite often customers and your team can actually go on to become friends, it's just not the same as leaning over one of those ugly grey carpeted partition walls in an open plan office and having a quick chat about Bob in accounting, or how nobody in your house can ever seem to change the toilet roll when it empties, doing it all over your morning coffee. And it's taken me a really long time to realize that what we're missing as independent business owners is that human connection. When you work for yourself, what we're lacking is the water cooler talk. You know, did you see those ugly tiles that they used on Flip or Flop? Or, I can't believe anyone would marry a complete stranger. Those stupidly insignificant little snippets of conversation that actually are what keep us human. And as much as those little breaks are a complete focus detractor, when you are your own boss, missing these integral connection points can be devastating for your productivity and even for your self-esteem. And in all transparency, this is not something that I'm immune to. The whole reason I'm recording this episode is because I've fallen into those exact same traps. I've found myself in that exact same position. So when this happened a few months ago, being the kind of person that I am, I sat down and worked out a plan on how I was going to fix this problem. How was I going to find that lost human connection and find some new business friends to conquer this self-afflicted business loneliness? And here is what I did. The first thing I realized is that you just have to get out more. You know how you can be categorized as an introvert or an extrovert? Well, most people, and you can probably guess that I'm an extrovert, most people think that extroverts are all about being the center of attention. And sure, that can be the case, but the true meaning is that extroverts get their energy from being around other people. So if you are an extrovert and you're stuck running your e-commerce business behind a screen, or if you're running a physical store and you're not out on the shop floor the entire day, which of course you shouldn't be because you should be the CEO of your business, then what you're going to find is that your energy source is depleted. That spark that you need to keep your mojo flowing, to keep your creative juices flowing, all of that is going to be dissipated because you just don't have the energy coming in from being around other people. Now, if you're an introvert, the whole idea of going out more and seeing more people is probably the last thing that you guys want to do. But here's the thing. I asked some introverts about what happens when you don't go out and meet new people, when you don't push yourself out of your comfort zone. And here's what they told me. First of all, you start to doubt your skill set. You start to doubt the ideas that you have, or even whether you have the ability to do specific tasks. And you don't hear about new ideas or new resources or different ways of doing things. But the biggest thing that my introvert friend said was if you don't have someone to physically talk to and bounce ideas from, that thing, that spark that happens when two people are in the same room together, it doesn't seem to happen when you are using Zoom or Skype or any of those other things. That thing that happens when you're physically in front of somebody, brainstorming or talking about ideas or trying to bounce a new product selection off, that just doesn't happen if you're stuck behind a computer screen living in your own world. Now, getting out of your own way doesn't have to be expensive. There are free event sites like Meetup or Eventbrite where you can just see all the different events that are happening in your area and choose which one you want to go out to. Now, personally, I love going to the Shopify Meetup. At the meetup that they do here in Sydney, they always have guest speakers who talk about not just Shopify, but a whole range of retail and e-commerce specific topics. So for me, going and talking to people who run agencies and people who are actually using Shopify and digital marketing specialists, all of those things just fill me up. And if you're the introvert kind of person, you can sit in the back of the room at those events. You can sneak in late, grab your glass of wine and sit in the back row or stand up against the back wall. But if you're not getting out and about, you're going to start to feel the effects. So the second part of my plan to conquer this business loneliness and all the things that come with it is to phone a friend, and even if that is your competition. So in my 12 or more years of working for myself, what I've discovered is that you have to have at least one person, preferably not your partner, but if that's who it is, that's okay. But you have to have at least one person who is your cheerleader. That one person who, through the good stuff and the bad stuff, totally believes in you, who will be the one who will tell you that you can do this. That person who will sometimes just listen when you need them to, or the one that will give you unbiased advice when it's called for. Now, maybe you're lucky enough to find that unicorn friend who can be all the things for you. And if you have, that is fantastic. But it's highly unlikely, right? So another option, and I have to say that I've been working on this myself, is this concept, and it is quite new to me, and it's called a personal advisory board. When I started digging into this a little bit more, I've also heard it called a life advisory board. And your advisory board consists of having a go-to person for different areas of your life. This is a support network that you can turn to and lean on. But each person has their own distinct skills and areas of expertise. These are the people who you can go to when you have specific questions that need to be answered. Now, personally, I have someone who I talk to about business growth, and then a completely different person that I talk to when I need some help with marketing. But what I'm starting to do is to identify different areas in my life and in my business that I can have those specific mentors for. So maybe that's another concept that you can look at exploring. And this does not have to be a paid thing. This is just having a group of people around you that you can call on when you need advice on specific topics. And you have to be very focused when you have this question. This is not a just, let's go for a glass of wine and a catch up. The idea behind a personal advisory board is specific advice. And you could already have this running in an informal way in your business already. And if you have, that is fantastic. And you are so lucky to have that support network. Okay, the third thing that I've started doing when I find myself spiraling into that business loneliness is exercise. And I have to say, guys, I am so surprised at the number of people who don't exercise each day, even if that exercise is just a 15-minute walk around the block. This is a scary fact that so many independent business owners aren't looking after their own health and welfare. You are the most important person in your business, so you have to look after yourself. Now, for me, going to yoga most days is actually less about the exercise than it is about just getting out of my own damn way. I'll admit, I didn't used to love yoga. When I first tried it several years ago, I was way too impatient. I spent the whole class just wanting it to end, and I probably needed it more then than I do now. But for me, yoga is that 1 hour of the day when I don't focus on anything other than what my body is doing at that present moment. And what I find is if my head is spinning with too much stuff, I actually can't do a lot of the poses. I can't balance. I can't stand up straight. So you really do need to center yourself and be 100% truly present. And for me, that switching off is the energy that I need, that gives me the opportunity to recharge myself. Now, likewise, when I also walk my rescue greyhound, Cav, I do that at least once a day. And in that time, if I'm not walking and talking with Ed, what I'll do is I'll listen to a podcast, or sometimes I'll actually just do nothing. And I find that when I'm walking, a lot of the answers of the questions that I've had for that day, a lot of the places where I'm feeling stuck or the obstacles that I seem to be facing, they just seem to unravel. Maybe it's your body moving. I'm sure it's just because you're not concentrating on that specific topic. But those problems seem so much less daunting for me when I'm out of my office and my body is moving. And of course, the studies do show that exercise creates those feel-good hormones, those endorphins. So if you are feeling a little bit like crap, revert back to science, people, and get your body moving to make yourself feel better. But sometimes you need more endorphins than your body can produce right now. So if you are feeling so stuck, so burnt out that everything just seems way too hard, then guys, there is absolutely no shame in seeking professional help. Now, I'll admit that in the past, I've suffered from depression, and if you've been listening to the show for a while, you'll know that I ended up with stage 2 renal failure, all because I was operating on empty for way too many years. Now, thankfully, after seeking help, my kidneys are functioning perfectly, and they have been for a couple of years now. But guys, I could not have fixed myself. Getting help is a sign of strength, not of weakness. It shows that you know what's happening in your body and you're prepared to take control of your own health. And like I said earlier, you are the most important person in your business. So if you're not looking out for you, who else is going to? Now, often entrepreneurship can be a very lonely road, and it's likely that many of the people that you find yourself surrounded by day in and day out, they don't understand exactly why it is you're doing the thing you're doing, or even what it is you're doing. And I can also pretty confidently say that most of these people have no idea how much you've invested in getting your business to where it is right now. So all of this makes it critical that you build a support network around you that you can depend on, that you can turn to when you need advice, when you need somebody to pick you up, when you need somebody to give you the help and the answers that you need. Maybe it's going to be that unicorn friend, or maybe it's going to be that personal advisory board that you're going to put together. And if you need some help with this, in a shameless self-plug, you can always come and join a group that is focused on moving you forward, not bringing you down, such as my group, The Retail Collective. If you want to check out that further, you can find it at selinaknight.com/collective. Well, that's all from me for this week. Look after yourself, and I'll see you back here again, same time next week. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selinaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selinaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.